Today, Stephen Green will now lead us through a conversation on funding for impact. An experienced entrepreneur and economist, Stephen is community director at the new Elevate Capital Investment Fund. His prolific track record includes recent roles at Albina Community Bank as vice president and co-founder of the Oregon Public House, the nation's first nonprofit brew pub, which hosted an awesome event for Portland Startup Week last night. Huge turnout. Thank you, Stephen. Take it away.
All right, so we've got an amazing panel here. So what I would like to start with is if all of you could take 2 minutes to give us a little bit about yourselves and then your definition of funding for impact.
We were supposed to get these questions beforehand.
This is your softball. Just say it.
So I'm Amy Pearl. I've founded and funded a nonprofit about 12 years ago after leaving Intel, running all the educational resources for about 32 countries. I'm an educator by heart. My goal as starting this nonprofit was to enable citizens to launch enterprises that improve communities. So I've been teaching people how to become social entrepreneurs before people knew what that was. So social entrepreneurship showed up first, and then we got into this, how do we get people who are doing these things to get started? We got to talk about money. And impact investing was next, sort of started showing up in the world. So I think what I would focus on in terms of my definition would be the intention. What do you intend to do? So I intend to use my money to actually see a particular outcome that is socially or environmentally focused. I would suggest is the intention that you're using your money, and hopefully you will also be getting some sort of financial return. But the definition for me of impact investing has to do with what you're trying to accomplish, what you would actually see as your non-financial return.
Hi, I'm Rob Papich, and I lead strategic investing at Cambia Health Solutions. We're a nonprofit, cause-driven organization that's trying to change the game for consumers in healthcare. And I've been in healthcare venture capital for 20 years, I say. It's with a big sigh, because it's kind of an IQ test I keep failing. It's hard. It hasn't gotten any easier in 20 years, and it's going to get harder as we go forward. But I love your point earlier that passion makes you tired. And I'm going to use that as soon as right now in speeches. Because when I think about social impact, I'm involved in our foundation. I think a lot about it in that context, but I think entrepreneurship at its heart in the right sectors is about impact. And I think about it, especially in the healthcare sector and the education sector, as a place where you can line up the machine of capitalism to actually drive people to do the right thing and make a big difference. And I also look at startup companies as these wonderful ecosystems where passion meets execution and hopefully meets outcome. And so lining up that engine, which is amazing, in a space where impact is needed, that's what gets us out of bed every morning. And I think the point that was made in the last panel about how business is people, that Venn diagram of things lines up to make every business a potentially impactful one. And it's really up to the management team and their investors to figure out how to make sure that they're pointing that cannon in the right direction towards good, not evil.
Like to last. So I'm Liz Bauer. I'm the founder and CEO of Gilded Rogue. We're an impact fund that's focused on rural communities. What we do is invest private equity, help the companies grow, and then exit via broad-based employee ownership, whether it's ESOP or co-op, so that the jobs and the dollars stay in the rural communities. My background is finance, so I'm a finance nerd. And so when I think about impact investing, I think about what does impact investing mean? Like, what can it do? And it really can change the world, right? I mean, impact investing is this thesis that when you measure not just your financial performance, which you need to measure, right? But also you measure your impact that you're having, how you're changing the world, that you can use your dollars as an investor to make a difference. And so for us, and for those of us that are running impact funds, we say, our returns, our financial returns, need to be at or more competitive than our conventional, so we can drive more dollars into impact. And we measure ourselves on impact to say, how are our ventures doing so that they are changing the world, right? So it's both and. So that's my definition of impact investing.
Great. So, thank you for the introduction and your definition. I think the audience, some of them, maybe this is their first time hearing about even the words coupled together, impact investing. Give us a snapshot, some concrete examples of what is working right now. Who's doing this right? Give us some concrete examples that people can look up on their phones when they later on, or look up on the computer later on.
Well, I think, we're in a really innovative place in the Northwest because you've got a lot of innovation happening from the foundation. You've got a lot of innovation happening here with entrepreneurs. But there's people that are saying, you know what, we can do this. And if we come together and drive change in the sector, then that's huge. And so,
No, it's okay. I can jump in and I'll pass the baton back. When I start talking, it's your turn. So I fundamentally think that many of the investments that we're making in the healthcare sector to transform the way that care is delivered in a consumer-centric way or take cost out, for me that classifies as an impact investment. And so as I think about it from the perspective of a traditional venture investor like us, we would never make an investment in a business that did not meet the social expectations that we have and the impact expectations that we have for the sector. So, I give you examples, but I don't want to be self-serving. If you look across at the portfolio that we've built, all of those companies would classify both as something that would pass our screen as a traditional venture-backed business, but then also have to meet our filter of does it advance our not-for-profit mission and cause.
okay, very good, sorry. Sorry, I'm coming over bronchitis right now. What I'd say is that there are funds and there are foundations right now that are near you that are changing the way that the impact investing works. And one of the ways that you measure is how are these funds doing from a conventional basis, and then what are they doing impact-wise? We have funds throughout the West Coast and throughout the country that are outperforming their conventional counterpart friends. If you've heard of the Global Impact Investing Network, and if you've never heard of impact investing, that's a good place to start, is Jen. And they measure, they say, how do funds do that are both measuring impact and measuring their returns? And what they've just published is that they're at or above, which they should be. So that's what you're seeing right now.
So I think that just a show of hands, do you know what impact investing is in your own little mind? Here you go.
Or big mind.
In your own little mind. We all know what it is, right? It's not like like what would that possibly mean? Well, I'm pretty sure I can figure it out, right? I think the question is, how do we all participate in it? Like SoCap is this conference that's been happening in San Francisco for the last, 8 or 9 years. I've gone to every single one except for one. Social capital markets. And the focus the first year was, I don't know, will we be able to pull this off? Is this something we can even do? And then after a few years, it was like, look, it turns out it's actually working. But most of the companies that were there were huge foundations, huge enterprises that were either government agencies, but mostly big foundations. So it was the focus was scale, and we're only going to put our money into things that are going to make enormous difference everywhere. And it has sort of shifted because I'm not one of those organizations. So go for it, best of luck. But as we shift this thinking to a more local approach, and you've heard some of that today, that really it turns out it doesn't work so well when you're clear across the world pumping money into something that you're actually not on the ground and implementing. So the idea that this is shifting more towards local, this last year at SoCap there was a whole local investing trend, theme, and in fact the developer of SoCap actually created a new conference that's called Neighborhood Economics. So essentially one of the things that, and some of you know, I have helped drive our own Oregon law for local investing. And local investing is impact investing. So as we think about looking, the grand global scale of some of these things that started out as called impact investing, we actually can begin to look at, well, so where do my dollars go? And I can tell you all right now, it goes to Wall Street. But how can we be impact investors ourselves and think about that kind of, what is the end goal? I mean, you're all impact investors. Your money's having an impact right now, somewhere. So, as we look at this notion of impact investing, I think bringing that home to Portland, to our own centers of work, is something that is making the shift both in the conference and the sort of pundit world, but also I think we're seeing that be possible with both here in the US as well as around the world as we become more engaged in our own economies. So I think I would leave you with that sense that impact investing is actually something we all can engage in more and more now, even as we get finance innovation happening in our own states.
Could I just add to that, just because I think I've been in venture for a while, and you look at, about 20 years ago, there was a big move in venture fund development towards backing emerging managers and emerging managers that had it wasn't called social impact then, but they had the equivalent as that part of their investment mandate. And the problem then was that those funds didn't perform as well as they could have. And so drawing the distinction between, this is a social impact fund and this is a normal financial fund led to different kinds of quality of investors, different kinds of deal flow. And what I'm really inspired by what you just said is you bring the mentality of the social impact that you want to have, whether it's a social impact fund or it's a fund, right? You bring the way that you are investing and the way that the world that you want to create, it's made manifest through the way that you invest and the way that you spend your own dollars. And we're not structured like as a social impact fund, but I would argue that as a venture investor, we have a pretty big, the cannon that we carry around with us to make change is pretty big. And as long as we are lining it up in alignment with the impact and the world that we want to see created, we'll have the same kind of impact. And we're going to be held to the financial returns that we would expect from a traditional financial investor.
Yeah, I think what you guys are alluding to is, in the finance world, there's been this dualistic kind of conversation going along where it's, all right, over here we make money, and then we're going to have the meeting about impact and mission investments later on, but that's not really the making money conversation. As opposed to, it's not an either or. There's actual, data and investments that have been done now that say, no, you don't have to give up on one to do the other. Question directly to you, Amy. Tell us a little bit about the work you've been championing here in Oregon around local investing and the power of crowdfunding and the opportunity that lies ahead for us.
Passion makes you tired. So I've been schlepping around the state, been in 22 cities around this state, looking at how do we fund, how do you get money into the hands of those who will use it for good? Right, it's one thing to have passion and stand up at a podium and say what you're doing is amazing, it is amazing. Well, most of the time it's something everyone in the room would go, absolutely, go girl. But getting money into the hands of people who are actually going to be able to do something is extremely difficult. That kind of direct investing or financing is literally and virtually non-existent. It's a really hard thing to do, especially in startup. So this idea that we can create these mechanisms that are legally allowable. So if any of these folks had actually filed their papers, a prospectus with the state of Oregon, they could be pitching to all of you, most of you I'm going to assume are not in that 1% of the wealthy. All of you raise your hand. Make sure we got 1 out of every 100. And they could ask you to actually invest in them. And they could raise up to $250,000. That was not legal before January 15th of last year. And it's just getting started. It's a baby law, really. It's, how many of you have heard of it? All right, maybe a third. So we're still making this effort. And I think the idea is simply to say that communities, if you imagine communities in every place in the world, able to actually help those they believe in to get started in ways that are more financially sustainable around actual investing that will provide them with some kind of financial return. And then they build that connectivity to the actual company itself, as well as looking at what that particular entrepreneur and enterprise will do for their own community. So it's a much tighter connection point between the entrepreneur and the enterprise and the community. And it's not donation. You get married to that entrepreneur for some amount of time while they're executing on that business plan. So it's a new way of thinking about impact investing. It's a new way of thinking about investing in general. It's actually a brand new way, a mechanism of being able to pitch to the 99% instead of just the 1%. And you can do anything from debt to equity, all kinds of deals, so the entrepreneur can decide what's best and most compatible with that particular company. So it's there's a lot more to say, obviously. We're having a conference April 26th to 28th called ComCap, Community Capital, and we'll be talking a lot more about that. 30 states have now passed these laws. So it's an adjunct to this, the movement of really massive amounts of money towards impact, but a lot of little actually is a lot more money than what could potentially be moved through big foundations. So we have a lot more power than we realize.
That's super cool, and I didn't know about it. Which shows the power of being there, right? So, but I would only say for folks who are thinking about how they start capitalizing their enterprise, their organization, their business, the way you capitalize at the beginning has a big impact on your ability to capitalize downstream. So, lots of choices to be made, but they're not. Just because it's expedient does not make it the best strategy, and so you need to be really informed about these different options because they will either expand or limit optionality a year from now.
I'd love to know which is expedient.
I don't know.
Fast way to money. Let's hear it.
Yeah, I need that too.
So I would love to hear you chime in, Liz, on this. As an investor, is this approach to impact investing, is this going to be a top-down approach for it moving forward? Or is this going to be something that you're going to be hearing from millennials, Gen Xers, and the new people that are taking over companies and starting companies saying, no, this is baked into our DNA. This is how we do business, and we're expecting that of the people that we're working with, including the people that are providing us funds.
Well, I think it's the latter, right? I mean, I think everyone is trying to innovate in this space because there's trillions of dollars that get moved through our money markets right now. And if you think about that, if those trillions of dollars could go to groups like you saw today, how can we change the world, right? And the millennials, which I'm not, but I mean, that's what you want to do. You want to change the world, right? Yeah. So, how do you drive money into that space? You put together your passion before you get tired, and get yourself a business plan to get funded and do your business the right way. And I think that the whole impact movement of saying we are going to outperform our conventional counterparts because we do business the right way, that's right. And I mean, there are businesses up here in Portland you guys know about that do business the right way. With Dave's Caliber that you guys just saw, right? All over the place. I mean, it's going to be something where, almost impact investing goes away, and then it's just, this is how we invest, right? This is what we do. We require that our investments, whether it's our 401k, dollars go into companies that are doing well. And we take that metric off and say, I'm going to make money in my 401k, and then I'm going to donate, right? We're going to say, we're going to do both. And so, yes, please, millennials, rise up. But also, anybody who has extra lots of money and part of that $1 trillion, please, help our money in this as well, right? You don't throw money, but invest in it, because it is the right way to move money into business.
I love that vision, and I would only say to those who are thinking about how you build those companies that have the better mousetrap, that are socially responsible. It's no easier, in fact, probably harder to build that company than it is to build any other startup company, and it's really hard to build any startup company. And so the fundamentals that are going to make you successful in that world are not the better mousetrap. And they may be directly linked, but not directly causally to your passion. They're going to be, have you got the right team? Do you have the right business model? Do you know how to do you understand the fundamentals? And what's the old expression that reason leads you up to faith but not into it? Passion will lead you up to a great business model, but it will not solve this problem. You've got to work really, really hard. And as an investor, I think you'd be looking, I guess I'd be looking for seeing both that passion and energy and view around changing the world, and also that you know what you're doing and that you're gonna, and you've assembled a great team to go do it. I don't think it's any different in this field than anywhere else.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think it's the and it is tougher. I mean, it's a lot tougher to get funded sometimes if you're in social impact business right now, right? But there are those of us that believe that this is the way that investments are happening and are going to move towards happening that are going to demand it out of all of our investments. So keep up the fight, right? Don't get tired. Keep going with your passion.
I think hearing all the pictures, it made me think about the startup weekend that was in Vancouver this past weekend. And what if we did a riff on startup weekend, but it was really around people that were, socially driven businesses? Because I think what we talked a little bit about in the back, what's missing? It seems like when people say they do a social business, oftentimes it's like the business stuff. I don't have to worry about too much because I'm doing this. Like I'm ending world hunger. Like I'm good. I don't have to worry about the lean business model strategy. So what's missing from this right now to really build sustainable businesses and business models?
The business part, right? I mean, that's got to be critical. You have to be an amazing business. You have to be viable. You have to be funded correctly. You need to have the right team, have the right strategy. You need to work like crazy. You need to basically just be amazing. And solve the world future. Right? Just those two things, and you're good.
Yeah, I want to add to that. You got to be amazing and in world hunger. Other than that, though, you're good. I think I look at healthcare as a space I'm in, right? And I've spent a lot of time in healthcare, and I think the trap that a lot of young entrepreneurs fall into is they believe that the better mousetrap, the better idea, that the fact that they're going to end world hunger and they have a slide that says so is what's going to differentiate them from the pack, and that'll be their trump card to win. And in the venture world, and a lot of things have gotten funded recently, but there's some cataclysmic failures coming in that area when they have not been married to knowing how to go run and scale a great business. And some of those things are boring, and most of them are hard, and most of them don't look sexy on a slide, but it's what you have to do to build a great business. And for those of you who can combine that passion and energy with that blocking and tackling, you've got a great runway ahead of you. For those you can or don't, find partners who can.
I think EBITDA looks sexy on a slide. I think EBITDA looks sexy on a slide.
Yeah, I agree with that.
You're in there.
So when you say what's missing, so when I have a lot of people come in and want to launch social enterprises out of Hatch. What I think is missing is, I think people are really baffled, right? There's a history of, you have three financial sources. Either you're going to get a loan from a bank, or you're going to get, mortgage your home, friends, family, and your own life, and then you're going to pitch to angels. And there are these new alternatives that actually that give you a better sense of not being underwater right off the bat. And so if we can shift away from some of that traditional thinking, which is really hard if you're starting out, you don't want to be a nonprofit, you're going to be a social enterprise, you're clear, or you don't even know you're a social enterprise, you just have this mission. We tend to shoot for the light at the end of the tunnel, right? If I have to pitch to angels, therefore I have to say these things. So or I'm going to apply for a grant, and so I have to say these things. We end up getting pulled all over the place. And I think the hardest thing, I ask this all the time, tell me what you're going to do. What is the outcome, the change you will see in 5 years? I rarely get anybody who can tell me. They just I love people. I want to build community. And I'm like, I know, I do too. That is not going to work. Everybody has that same mission. What are you going to do that you know you're going to do? Your mission is measurable, and in 5 years, you will know whether you did it or not, or in 1 year. And it's really, really hard. So I would suggest that in terms of social enterprise, where your focus is some kind of thing you're trying to not solve, let's say, but address that has social or environmental or educational or financial, whatever, impact, that you know what it looks like when you get there. I think focus is very, very hard to cultivate, especially when you feel very pulled, especially if you're young, especially if you're in startup. Like, they said I should do this. Oh, but they said I should do this. So I think focus is what's missing. I think it's really hard to do. And money, that clarity of purpose, when you are an entrepreneur, not just passion, but clarity of purpose and execution is, you know, it's the hard work. But I think purpose is what inspires others to fund you, to join you, to be part of your team, and to help you. So clarity of purpose, I know what I'm going to do at the end of the day, I think is really hard to cultivate.
I think the other thing is, you know, you have people in venture up here right now, and that's kind of a glamorous thing in the spotlight right now. But we're one of the tools, right? We're one of the tools. So when PPJ does an article, they do an article on so-and-so raised $50,000, so-and-so raised $5 million. They don't go and say, oh, well, Mary Indiana at Alabama Bank did a $40,000 deal for so-and-so. And they did 30 of those. That doesn't get glamorized. So I think oftentimes for really early stage entrepreneurs that oftentimes don't know what they don't know, they think there's validation in talking to venture, as opposed to knowing, well, this is my business and this is where I'm at, this is the tool I need to use. That may be the wrong tool.
Well, I've never been called glamorous before, but I would say
Those socks are glamorous. Those socks.
totally glamorous. But I would say that I would actually take it a step further and say that no matter where your money comes from, that's not the scoreboard to be watching. Like, whoever gives you money, if you're running an entrepreneurial business, financing is a tactic, and so you want to do the right thing, and you want to find the right partners, and all of this, and you do it the wrong way, it can really set you back. But the scoreboard is, are you achieving the vision that you have? Are you moving your company along to meet the world that you want to create? And that is not the scoreboard of valuation or dollars raised. In fact, those distract you so many times from what really matters. And you think you're winning and you've actually just lost and you didn't know it. So I think it's great to highlight other pathways to capital, but I would say view that as just putting some gas in the tank. The gas station is not your destination.
Clear. Any adverts on that?
I think that you should never plan on venture capital, ever, right? How many people actually get funded for venture capital? Do you have any idea how many pitches these guys see? I mean, and I'm not in venture capital, I'm in private equity, which is basically we invest in more mature companies, so companies that might need an exit strategy. And I like not sexy companies, I mean, that's the difference, is like, I'm not glamorous or sexy or any of those things. I like companies that just make money and then they help their communities. And so don't go into, being an entrepreneur thinking you're going to get, have this pitch and get a bunch of money, because so few people do that. Go into it and put together a revenue stream, right? Know what your costs are, figure out how much money you need to live, buy some ramen, because it's going to take long to do that. Really? Not kidding? And go out and make money. Like, you have to start with the making money. Get your business sense down. If you can get that down and then layer in the save the world part, right? You're going to be bold and so much more attractive to these sexy guys.
Glamorous and
This
sexy.
is an amazing panel, by the way.
I am sexy. I wanted to go out on Twitter. I think this notion, we had a couple of nonprofits up here, and like I said, so I haven't told you guys this, but I'm writing a book. I haven't said this out loud. So I'm writing a book called Burning in Nonprofit Hell. How many of you will buy it? Okay, enough said. So I'm actually serious, and I think, I believe that, and I run a nonprofit, right? And I believe being a nonprofit is a very honorable thing to be. It's a very accountable way to move in the world. But you're doing something that matters to the world. In fact, I think nonprofits are doing the most important work now in the world ever, much more so than in the past. and we have to beg to do it. It's ridiculous. It's unethical. And often we're asking the people who are actually running the status quo to fund our disruptive ideas. So let's just put that aside for a minute and say, yes, I'm a nonprofit, yes. But would I do it differently if I were going to start this thing I'm doing now, if I were to start it now? And I think the answer is yes. Although back then, if you're a nonprofit, no one takes you serious, they trust you. But if you're a for-profit, they take you serious, but they don't trust you, right? So now I think that's better. We're getting a little further down the road. And I think that that's the challenge, right? We do have to think in ways that we haven't thought about before. And that causes people to be uncomfortable. So coming to the idea that I think, what if I did do this as a for-profit? How would I do that? Is the challenge I think we have to ask ourselves, not because it's sexy or because we're gonna get better money or, in some ways, I think donations are, it's a very difficult road. But even asking for money is a difficult road regardless. I think the idea that you could think differently about how you're going to continue to serve this community or continue to do this thing that's making a difference. With grants, your grants dries up and you've got all these people relying on you and like, sorry, they said no. That's just not okay, right? So it's the idea that you have to create some sort of income stream in order to have the impact you're trying to have in a sustained way. You owe it to the challenge you're trying to solve. So thinking about that, I think it's hard. But we've been working on this for 12 years. We have 5 different ways of doing it that we've articulated as an organization. But that's the thing. I think that's really what we're trying to encourage both on the entrepreneur side to think differently, and it's not all that, difficult. There's a lot of stuff out there now. And on the impact side, when you're going to put your money into something, be sure that what they're doing is what you want to see done. And so the tighter you are clear about what you're trying to accomplish, what does move you, what your passion is it's expressed in your business well, as you say, get your together. And when you're investing, even if it's $100, the companies on hatchoregon.com right now, many of them are social enterprises. They just wouldn't call themselves that. You can invest $100 and help get a social enterprise off the ground. And I think if we see that happen, at least in this country, in every state, there's all kinds of opportunities to change the world.
When we had the idea for the Public House, it was at the peak of the recession, 2010. What we had realized was, Portland has more nonprofits per capita than any city in the country. And the first thing that dropped from everybody in the private sector was giving money to those nonprofits. And the other thing that happens in a recession is people drink more beer. We put the two of those together because we knew that it's the faucet gets turned on. You laugh, but
That's a great idea. I like that.
almost $100,000 in 2 years. It's working smart. I think what's not being talked about a little bit is really how do we take people that are passionate about missions, have backgrounds in the nonprofit mission-related world, and connect them with business folks? Because generally they're not at the same functions. Generally they don't sit and have dinner together, and they make assumptions about those different sides of the fence, as opposed to I think when I listen to you talk about it, that's a really, really powerful team where you have somebody who's jazzed about the mission, somebody who knows the blocking and tackling, somebody who has relationships in other worlds where they can really make a difference.
Yeah, it's the community, right? So in the Seattle market, we've opened the Cambia Grove, which is a physical place that's bringing together business people from healthcare, not-for-profit folks from healthcare, delivery system people from healthcare, technologists, folks who don't see each other every day, and we're creating a kind of central water cooler where they kind of run into each other. And I tell you, we had this thesis when we opened it in March that this could be okay. People are there all the time, and it's not like just like these folks looking for, it's like a Starbucks they're hanging out in. You have like CEOs of companies coming in, and they're running into folks who are from outside of healthcare who want to get in and make a difference, who are running into folks who are working in nonprofits who want to figure out how they connect with enterprise. And then in Seattle market, we're seeing is technologists who are saying, I'm sick of being at Amazon or Microsoft and doing this work for nothing. I want to do something that's meaningful. This is an industry where that matters. How do I get in? What does getting in mean? It's complicated. And so I further just as a testament to the power of colliding with others and figuring out how to create a place where those business people and the social impact folks and can actually have a natural, organic way to talk about these issues. And I think it's powerful when it happens.
He hasn't been to Hatch yet.
No, I'm coming.
So I actually don't, I mean, I'm a great magical thinker, I'll admit that. But one of the things that I think we could also offer up here is some of the strategies by which if you're a nonprofit, you can create a for-profit that's owned by the nonprofit, right? So you've done some things like this. We have a couple of companies that also, right, all the time. And a lot of this is sort of secret, like they don't get it, you don't really know this till later. And so there are ways of putting nonprofits and for-profits together that allow you to have access to two kinds of funding streams or more. And that's just one of the, these kinds of strategies have been out there for a while, but it's something to take into account as you plan how to leverage the sorts of things that people will fund through nonprofits, and then how to leverage other sorts of market-based strategies that might be more profitable and deliver more income through a for-profit strategy.
I mean, I think it's conferences like this, right? It's people in this field of impact investing, social entrepreneurship are in this to change the dynamics of how money can change the world. And so if you're interested in changing the world, start going to more of these things and reach out and talk to them. I'm sure any of us would be happy to put you on, get connected with the people that you need to get connected with, and invite your friends that are accountants or your friends that are IT guys or your finance nerd friends, right? The things that you wouldn't think they would go to. We're finding this barrier between the nonprofit world, and I come for-profit, right? I've never gotten a grant in my life, right? I wouldn't even know what to do. And so learning about nonprofits for me has been like a challenge like this. But when you bring those diverse groups together, isn't that always when the best solutions happen, right? When you get somebody that really is an ESOP guy. Have you guys ever met a real ESOP guy? Amazing, right? Bring those guys together and talk about how we can give wealth or drive wealth into rural. Bring people that are healthcare venture guys together and start creating the solutions. You can do this.
Well, and I would just add that, so invite them here, but don't view this as like a place you need to stay among social impact people and not. In fact, take the mission out to them. Go to where they are, because I think that's a better way to kind of collide. Is to take a bi-directional approach. Go where it's uncomfortable. Go to these industry things, go to these finance things, mingle with crass capitalists. You will learn a lot, and you'll figure out the language that they speak, and they'll learn your language, and if you're good at this, you'll figure out ways to craft something magical out of that. But I don't think it's going to happen if you just say, come to our house, because a lot of them won't come.
The word is infiltrate.
There you go.
I'm serious. I go to conference, I don't want to talk to you. You already know you're here. I'm preaching to the choir, right? I know half of you, right? You already have a sense of what's up. You already have a sense of purpose. You're here because this moves you. The thing to do is to infiltrate. Go talk to the chambers. Be a guest speaker at a chamber. Be a guest speaker at a mayor's conference. Go talk to the regulators at our state. There's law of things you can go. It's weird, but it's amazing. And you're like, really? I've never heard this before. So we have sort of a voice, and we do have data that says these sorts of things are actually making a difference. So that kind of thing, preaching to the choir and everybody patting each other on the back, going to green drinks or whatever it is where we meet each other again. Get out into the universe and build this ecosystem, because that's what it's going to take. It is not about the 100 people in this room. We really need to move out into the universe that helps explain how compatible capital and impact entrepreneurs and enterprises that are designed to address our worst and slightest challenges locally and globally are part of what we need to pay attention to.
So we've got 5 minutes left, and I was really encouraged in the back to take questions from the audience, which actually basically the opposite. But we're gonna do it anyway. So we got 5 minutes left. Any questions at all? You're probably not gonna have us four up, definitely after doing this, up together. So,
We're glamorous now, so.
all right, so, yes ma'am.
Hi, my name's Kimberly. I am a founder of a small business that I'm transforming into work on with cooperative. I've seen all kinds of pitch fest for angel investors. I haven't seen anything to look for partners. I need partners. I'm your innovator. I need partners. I'd love to see somebody that put on where you can pitch for the counterparts that we need in order to build the businesses. I'm trying to find partners. There's no easy avenue to do that.
Yeah, come see me after that, because the world of cooperatives is tricky, right? I mean, but there are a lot of people doing really innovative things around the country, and that in the financing of cooperatives as a segment within the greater employee ownership sector. And so we can talk about this.
Well,
How they connect with you.
the other thing is, this is what Startup Weekend is all about. So Startup Weekend is where people get together, technical people, business people, passionate people, marketing people, and everyone comes together on a Friday, people pitch their own ideas, and then there's people in the audience that are just there to do work. Like, I just code, so I'm just waiting for the coolest idea, and then I'm gonna join that team. And so literally, in less than 60 hours, people go from never knowing each other to saying, I wanna be in Kim's team, and then you guys don't sleep, you spend the whole weekend together, you hate each other, and then you pitch Sunday night, and you come up with something. And before you know it, you have a team. You have other people coming to you and saying, oh my gosh, that came together really, really well. I got this other take on it. And so you can do that. And so I would really, we've got a really strong network here in Portland around doing startup weekends, but I've never seen one done that was really around, a community impact startup weekend, where you can bring those kind of people together and then get shit done in a weekend and have a team and bring people together. So I would definitely have to look into that.
Another question, Don.
Hi, I'm the guy who runs the Social Entrepreneurs Meetup, and I was inspired by Amy when she opened up Hatch to get it going. I have over 500 members now, probably half of you guys didn't know something about us. My biggest problem is trying to promote all of you guys that have these ideas, and there's no fund or campaign for Hatch or PSU. I mean, I pull my little bit of hair out every day, trying to figure out how do we promote this whole concept beyond just, like Amy said, this room. How do we get, instead of next year, another 400 people, 4,000 people to really pay attention to what we're doing? Because that's what it takes. And I'm interested in helping fund and organize some kind of promotional campaign for the organizations that want to participate in spreading a message like that. So just put that in your minds, and if you have any ideas, Social Entrepreneurs Meetup is online, you can find them.
Social Entrepreneurs Meetup online, they meet at Hatch, and it's another good place to find partners as well every month.
We've got time for one more question. Who's going to be the big? She's been, okay.
Hi, Elizabeth, it's Christy from Thin River, so.
Yay!
Right there. We run a rural beverage business trying to make a positive social impact in a rural community. I want to, and probably not tonight, but I want to talk about the costs of socially responsible businesses. You're talking about equally performing or outperforming. And, we find that there's very costly decisions we make for positive community, social, environmental impact. I know we need to be awesome. We're working on it. We're employing lots of rural people. We've got great sales, but that margin is tough when you try to do everything right. And so I guess it's a conversation for later. But I also want to make a shout out to the consumer, because I think in all of this we're counting on the socially conscious, the social impact consumer. We don't even call them consumer, we call them our community members, to make these decisions that allow us to perform for you so that we can get the investment. So a shout out and a question about the cost of socially responsible business.
Well, you're doing amazing things. If you guys haven't Googled Thin River, you need to, right? And I think the ciders will be available later.
Yeah.
I think that you're right. I think the consumers, but I think that was your question earlier about the millennial population, right? I mean, you have to say, do I want the cheapest thing, or do I want the tastiest thing that's also helping change the world? And that's, to margin, of course you have to have margin, because without margin, there's no mission, right? That's impact.
I think we live in a region where any business has to contribute to the triple bottom line in order for them to really be successful, because the consumers in this region demand that. And you know, I think about people like Katrina Scott DiCarlo of Portland and all the work she's done around how important it is to recycle dollars. And when you make, you know, implicit decisions around shopping at, you know, a nationally owned coffee shop versus someone that lives in your neighborhood doing something, and how that money continues to churn and come back into schools, come back into banks and stuff like that. So I think, you know, it's informing people that you're out there, because I think a lot of people, you know, they go to the store and they think there's coolers, there's Bud. You know, they don't think there's great things out there, but we have more events. There was a cider event this week, a cider conference.
Well, and actually our consumer response is great, but I'm just talking about the cost of the socially responsible business, and I guess, I don't know if that's all passed on to the consumer, or if the investment, you know, investment groups, you know, are expecting the same return, they're expecting the same performance, but is there a room for those kinds of companies to sort of, maybe we need more time to get there, I guess.
That's
And at the same time that we need the investment.
It's hard.
Yeah.
I agree.
And that's all I wanted to say.
And you're doing it, and for all of those of you that are doing it, that are going down this road, yeah, it's hard, but you still have to do well financially.
So, and I just say, we have adjusted our IRR hurdle to accommodate that. I mean, it's just because we know it takes longer and costs more.
It also is part of, I mean, it's part of the intention. Like, coming back to what we started off talking about right in the very beginning, what are you trying to accomplish? And if you have money and you're trying to accomplish something and you're saying, I would choose you over somebody else, even though it doesn't matter that you're, of course it costs more. So I get that. That's why I picked you. It's because you're making those choices. And I think, to Dawn's point, and to sort of think about, one of the things that's going to happen, I think it will happen eventually, it's happening everywhere but here in the US, is this sense of true cost. So we look at the cost of the thing at the very end of the day, but what's the true cost of delivering things from China? Or what's the true cost, you know, when we take all the costs into account, not just, you know, there's all kinds of things that we're having an impact on based on not just buying locally, but the way things are sourced, where they're from, you know, all sorts of things. Those true costs aren't shown. So how we get better at communicating true cost, I think, not just, I'm more expensive, darn it, sorry, but why are you more expensive? I think that's partly part of what we don't do well.
Well, I want to thank all the panelists for their time.